Hello, everyone out there in Who Dat Nation, and a special hello to our Bayou Blitz family. Welcome to our Bayou Blitz Week 11 recap show. Can't call it a post-game show because there was no Saints post-game in Week 11 because your New Orleans Saints were on a bye this week. But here we are just to get you caught up on the nickel and dime stuff. With your New Orleans Saints on the bye week, and get your Falcons hate week kicked off. And to do that, my name is Bob Rose. His name is Brendan Boylan, and we together make up your Bayou Blitz podcast. Brendan, happy bye week to you.
Yeah, you as well. I was kind of joking before we got on, is people are probably going to be listening this Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and instead of having like a victory Monday or a sad Monday after a loss, it's kind of just like an even keel coming off the bye week. Type of easy listening Monday. Obviously, like you said, kind of going into hate week with the Atlanta Falcons coming up. But, we just want to sit here and kind of talk about where we are with the season to this point and how very interestingly the results of the last 2 weeks are going to make the rest of the season. I don't want to call it a nail biter, but all of a sudden there is like perhaps a little bit of life in the NFC South because the Bucs aren't quite running away with the division as it looked like within the first few weeks of the season. So it's going to be really interesting. And it was nice to sit and watch football and not have to stress about anything or, take notes. Obviously, Bob's got the handy dandy notebook over there, but it was nice just to sit and watch football. I got to watch Shador make his NFL debut today. It didn't go very well for Shador.
No.
But it's nice to see that for another team and not have to sit there and be like, ooh, rookie quarterback, NFL debut. I wonder how this is going to go, as we did just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I took a stroll through the NFC South today, and then tuned in to watch the Denver Broncos, defeat the Kansas City Chiefs.
I caught the end of that.
As some of you know, I grew up a fan. I grew up in the Elway era. My favorite NFL player of all time, and a big Denver Bronco fan growing up too. So it's good to see some life back in the Denver Broncos. It just sucks that it has to be with our coach, Sean Payton. But yeah, I mean, my stroll through the NFC South, and I'll recap that. It'll be an article coming out on Monday, with Saints Wire through the USA Today. But I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost in a close game to the Buffalo Bills, but Tampa Bay drops to 6-4. The Atlanta Falcons falconed. And once again, hilarious fashion, losing to the Carolina Panthers 1 week after Bryce Young looked like, oh my God, one of the biggest busts in NFL history. The Falcons made him look like the next Joe Montana. Bryce threw for 125, 130 yards against the Saints. Was just as ineffective as you could be last week, and then this Sunday afternoon threw for almost 450 yards as the Panthers improved to 6-5 in defeating the Falcons, who fell to 3-7, 0-3 in the division, which is a very close number to keep an eye on. As we mentioned, the Saints are in action at home next week against the Falcons. But Brendan, the last 7 games New Orleans has, the combined winning percentage of those opponents is .347. That's a combined winning record of 25-47 with 2 games against the Falcons, your rematch against the Panthers, rematch against the Bucs, and then games against the Dolphins, Jets, and Titans. And I don't want to say that there's a chance, but there's a chance.
Yeah, Lloyd Christmas, there is a chance.
Mm-hmm.
There is a chance. And we don't want to jump too ahead of ourselves. This is a season recap show, so we'll have more Wednesday night. Barring my flight gets home on time, fingers crossed, we will have a show Wednesday night. But yeah, all of a sudden you're looking at the rest of the day and you go, hey, if the ball bounces the right way, for the Saints, you could find yourself competing the division, which is gross to say out loud. It's wild to say out loud. And maybe compete for the division isn't the most accurate representation of what we're trying to say, but what we're saying is the Saints could stir the pot a little bit, might be the better way
Mm-hmm.
to phrase. They could stir the pot here down the stretch and really open the door for Carolina to jump Tampa, or vice versa, really open the door for Tampa to get back to that running away with the division look. So it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. And it all starts and gets kicked off, like Bob said, with Falcons Hate Week in New Orleans. Drew Brees will be on the call for that game.
Mm-hmm.
For all of you wondering, he will be on the call for that game. I thought he did okay today. Definitely had some rust. I don't know the last time he called an NFL game, but he did the Green Bay and New York Giants game. And I thought he did okay. I think there's room for improvement. But like I said, when's the last, not even just pro game, when's the last time he's called a game? And just like anything you do, obviously the more you do it, the more consistently you do it, the better you're going to be at it. Sometimes
Yeah, unless you're Tony Romo.
Oh, there you go. Bob taking subtle shots on Tony. I thought Tony was fun the first year. The prediction was fun, but now it's kind of gotten old. I also, as a play-by-play guy, I don't know if I could do it, right? Because Tony's very long-winded, and then he runs into the next play.
Yeah.
And it just throws a lot of things off. But I digress. We'll talk about the Saints and kind of recap the season here. Before we do that, I wanted to take a second. Bob, this is how I said it to you before we started. So trigger warning for people. If you don't want to hear about somewhat political stuff, you can skip the next minute or so, maybe 2 minutes or so. But I did want to take a second, especially because it is affecting where I live. Some of you know nationally that there was a decision by the United States government and this administration to send Border Patrol, ICE, and some military personnel to Charlotte this week. And as someone who was in the city yesterday, frequents the city of Charlotte, only living about, 10, 15 miles north of the city, I'm over it. I am so over it. Look, if what these guys were doing was what the actual intent was, to get vicious, awful criminals off the street, that would be one thing. But the fact that there's a Walmart not that far from my house where you have ICE agents set up asking anybody who doesn't look a particular way, where are you from? And starting to aggressively question people. That's not okay. Nor is it fair. To go to a international food market over the weekend and detain a teenage kid who was a U.S. citizen, put him in handcuffs, throw him on the ground. A teenage kid, because of the way he looked, is not okay.
No.
The fact that I have to reach out to relatives of mine in the city and remind them to be safe, careful, and mindful of their surroundings and who they are with, that is not something that I should be doing as a United States citizen for other people who, whether they're United States citizens or not, that are not causing any trouble to anybody. I know you know this, Bob, because I know you're particularly close to a main city as well. Guess what? Every morning that I wake up, or every Monday morning that I wake up and I need to get gas in the morning, right, to fill my tank when I'm going to work, do you know who's there at that gas station at the butt crack of dawn? Right? It's your landscapers. It's your home builders. It is your blue collar guys, right, that are waking up and busting their ass every single day to provide for their families. regardless of what you guys think at home, you guys might think something different of me. At this point, I don't really care. Why the hell are we going after those people? Regardless of whether they're legal citizens or they've crossed the border pursuing the American dream to provide a better life for them and their families. Why are we harassing people? Why are we going out? And why is I'm going to sound really old here. Why is my tax money going to that? Right? Why is my tax money going to harassing people, throwing people in vans, taking them far away, not giving them any contact with their family, and in a lot of cases, releasing them weeks later because you realize, oh, you know what? We can't do that to American citizens. And to the people who aren't American citizens that are still locked away or sent to God knows where, what are we doing? This is not the America. This is not the America that I was taught about in school. This is not the America that my mother came to as an adopted kid, right? 50 years ago. This is not what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to, and for all of you that claim that this country needs to just go and be, Christian and Jesus loving and all that, right? Love thy neighbor, right? It's right there at the top of the list of the commandments, right? Love thy neighbor. This isn't loving people at all. It is not accepting people for their differences, and it is not helping people to be better. This is ridiculous. ICE, get the hell out of my city.
It's the very definition of foundless persecution.
I'm over it. And for all of you that don't agree, we can agree to disagree. That's fine. But I'm over it, and I think that a lot of people here should be over it. And that's my spill. So trigger warning has now ended. You can resume listening to football and football activities. But I had to get that out. Bob, let's talk. I guess we should start at the beginning of the season and kind of work our way, right? I think there's different positions and there's different topics we talk through. But let's start at the beginning of the season. Because week one, I think there's unrealistic hope for any team going into week one of any season. But the Saints played a very competitive game against Arizona. And it came down to the wire. And it came down to, at that point, what you and I probably thought, and a lot of people thought, was Spencer Rattler's best throw as a pro that could not be caught in the end zone. And a lot of that had to do with terrific defense by the Cardinals secondary. And it just being a tough grab in general for Juwan Johnson. And then we slowly got into the monotony of an offense that was unable to push the ball downfield. We got into the monotony of an offense that was very vanilla. It was very dink and dunk. And an offense that, in you and I's opinion, did not utilize its playmakers in the best way possible. So let's start there and assessing those first few weeks of the season. I think we're in a better place now than what we were.
Mm-hmm.
But what were some of the positives? And obviously, and I think there's going to be a lot more negatives than positives when we talk about these first few weeks of the season. What were some of those positive and negative takeaways as Kellen Moore really got his feet under him for the first time as a head coach in the NFL?
Well, like you said, and we're trying not to be overly negative, but it's tough when you're 2-8. Because you are what your record says you are. But I've written quite a few season recap to this point articles on Saints Wire this week. I have 2 more that should be published tomorrow morning. Offensive and defensive game balls that are talking about this very sort of subject. the positives for me, I got to start with the Saints offensive tackles. I think Calvin Banks Jr. has been outstanding. Regardless of what FPFF thinks. Because
I was like, I know those are your favorite people. I remember when they first started getting popular, we were writing together, and Bob was like the only guy that refused to reference them in any article. And you know what, Bob? I'm happy to give you your flowers. You were correct. Their grading scale makes zero sense whatsoever.
I'm convinced these people don't watch football games. They might catch an occasional red zone highlight, and that's about it. But yeah, I mean, PFF grades, Banks poorly. Bill Barnwell said something ridiculous today about, on Twitter, calling Banks a bust, saying that, the Saints went 0 for 3. Yeah, he initially started out trashing on Trevor Penning, but then wound up saying, the Saints wasted 3 draft choices on left tackles and went 0 for 3. Bill Barnwell either doesn't watch football or can't understand what he's watching. Either way, that person shouldn't be allowed to make comments, on a semi-professional level, because I think Banks has been an outstanding. Banks has been the best Saints offensive player for me, for my money, and the second best is Fuaga. I know Fuaga has been, Talise Fuaga has been banged up this year. Dealt with knee, back, ankle injuries. He's missed 2 games completely, and had to leave 2 others because of injury, and really has barely practiced at all in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But consider this, folks. We all know that Fuaga had a strong rookie year. Last year's first-round draft choice at left tackle, an unnatural position for him, by the way. But he had a very good rookie year. With the drafting of Banks, Fuaga moved over to the right side. His natural collegiate position, where he was an All-American, but you're talking about now a player that has to learn 2 positions at NFL speed in 2 years. And I think Fuaga has done a fine job at right tackle. That's where the Saints more often than not like to run the football. And despite the human turnstile that wears number 51 with the name Ruiz on the back of the jersey, defenses are going to overload that side game in and game out because of Cesar Ruiz. And I think Fuaga has held up very, very well. I think at the very least, folks, the Saints, and you can criticize all the personnel decisions you want over the last several seasons with this team, but the Saints appear to have got it right with their last 2 first-round draft choices, to the point that you potentially have top-tier bookend tackles for the next several seasons. That was the foundation of Sean Payton's, late in Sean Payton's tenure, his offense, with Teron Armstead on one side and Ryan Ramczyk on the other. And we know what those offenses were able to accomplish, how they just bullied opponents. And I think Banks and Fuaga have that kind of potential. So yeah, my game balls and my top performers, 1 and 2, Kelvin Banks and Talise Fuaga.
I think that's fair. And what you said, I think, is an excellent point. When you're looking at building a team, starting in the trenches is always key, right, on both sides of the football. But to get your true anchors at tackle, and to spend early first-round picks on both, and be able to solidify what you would hope the next 10 years to be on both sides, I think that's a big thing. And New Orleans has done that. If Eric McCoy could stay healthy, you have a really good piece in the middle. The health is going to be the concern down the stretch. We've now seen 2 consecutive years where he's been, maybe even longer, where he's been banged up and missed significant time. I think for me, as much as we criticized him early, and I still don't think he's a true number 1 wideout, I do have to give some props to Chris Olave. statistically, and like I said, in playing a role that I don't think is best suited for him, and putting up some of the numbers he has. You guys are not going to like this because his drop rate's at like 10%. But Jawan Johnson's going to finish the year, or at least he's on pace to finish the year at like 850 yards, probably eight touchdowns without putting the numbers right in front of me and doing the math. I do know somewhere in the 850-yard range. The Saints haven't had a tight end do that since I don't think Ben Watson got that high in yardage. But if it's
the
not
first
that,
Jared Cook year might have.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. But we've been begging for that, right? We've been begging for tight end. Somebody, right? We've really been begging for that since the exit of Jimmy Graham over a decade ago. Was we wanted something. And while Jawan has his inconsistencies and he's not perfect, he has been a steady force for the Saints. And we said early in the season, we said it looked like for Spencer Rattler, Jawan was the safety net. So I do want to give some credit to both of those guys. I want to stick offensively. I think we can do that. And I want to talk about the biggest head scratcher to this point of the season. I think we're going to agree right out the gate. It's probably Devon Vele, and not so much for his performance, but lack there of snaps. We can comment on that, and I kind of want to push that back, because if that's the one we agree on, give me one that you don't think we're going to agree on that is going to be a head scratcher.
I don't know if we would disagree on any of the head scratchers.
That's fair.
Because they're so obvious, but in no particular order. You mentioned Vele, the lack of usage of Alvin Kamara as a pass catcher, the inability to use the versatility of Taysom Hill, general play calling, horrific clock management, the refusal to try to let Olave or Rashid Shaheed, before he was traded, take the top off of defense with Spencer Rattler. Just generally Kellen Moore's play calling, game plan design, and personnel knowledge. Vele, Kamara, Olave, Shaheed, Taysom. You expect a learning curve while an offensive coach is getting to learn his offensive personnel. But we're 10 games in, man, and we're still seeing some of these same things. Granted, we saw some nice things out of Tyler Shuck, going downfield to Olave, going downfield to Jawan, a couple targets to Vele, a beautiful backside screen to Kamara. The kind of stuff that we used to see, from this offense. And I'm not necessarily comparing Kellen Moore to Sean Payton, because those are big shoes. But I make that statement because Sean Payton knew his offensive personnel and designed game plans, called plays based off of the strengths of those players. And I'm not seeing that from Kellen Moore. I don't know if we disagree on any of those, and I threw them out there in no particular order because they all pretty much equally infuriate me.
Yeah, I think Alvin Kamara's lack of use, and obviously I highlighted it, I felt like, for 5 consecutive weeks where Kamara was getting like less than 15 touches a game. And I said, in what world? Even when he was hurt, like I go back to like the 2019, was it the 19 season where he was clearly playing hurt?
Yeah.
But he was still getting 15 touches a game at least. Okay, so if in that year he's clearly hurt, the Saints have a very competitive team in 19. Why would he not get touches on a team that we know is not going to be competitive? Right? Like, those are the things that mind boggle me. You brought up the inability of allowing Shaheed or Olave to really take the top off. I'll extend that, especially on the Rashid Shaheed part before he got traded, was just the inability to use Shaheed at all.
Yeah.
In any creative way. whether it be in the screen game, whether it be on a reverse or a jet sweep, whether it be on double moves, like whatever it was, it just felt like you had lightning in a bottle, and all you had to do was take the cork out of the bottle, and it was just, nah, we're just gonna let it sit on the shelf and just sit there. It's kind of like the pretty car that sits in your garage that you never drive, right? It's the Ferris Bueller Ferrari that just sits there, and you know exactly what the mileage is, but you never take it out for a spin. Like, that's no fun. So that was infuriating, and honestly, for Rashid Shaheed to go a little sidetracked here, for him to go to Seattle, I think was the best thing for him, because we did see the creativeness out of Kubiak last year,
Mm-hmm.
and so for Kubiak to go to, you know, his GM and say, hey, look, if the Saints are fielding calls, like, I would love to add this guy back, and then be able to go and bring up an iPad and go, look what we did last year together. Probably really sold it. So good for Rashid, but that was infuriating. Vele, the lack thereof. I mean, we've talked about it, right? You're giving up a top 100 pick for a guy who's getting like 25% of the snaps offensively. We expect it to go up, especially after a bye week and after the Rashid Shaheed trade. But if it doesn't, then you're really going to look back at the trade and just go like, well, what were we? Did we trade 2 picks for a body?
Right.
You know, a guy who fits the mold, but we're never going to give him the shot to play. Like, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Okay, we'll close out offense, generic offense here, by saying, what was the most disappointing, or who has been the most disappointing offensively for you? Now, disappointing can go a lot of different ways. It could be you had high expectations, they haven't met them. There's a particular player I'm thinking of that you could go. There was a particular number that may have a 1 and a 5 in it. But in your eyes, what's been the most disappointing aspect of the offense, whether it be a player, whether it be play calling, etc.?
I'll stay on the sidelines. Kellen Moore. Again, you have an Alvin Kamara who is, for my money, still, if he's not still the finest receiving back in the NFL, he's second, or he's no worse than top 3, and you don't use him. You have 2 fine offensive tackles, first-round choices, first-round investments, and you don't run often enough off tackle. We just talked about the play calling and the play designs. For Shaheed, Olave, Brandon Cooks, not using Vele, and any of that stuff. I'm not saying Kellen Moore should be on the hot seat just yet, but if we don't see significant improvement out of the offense, his specialty, by the end of the year, then that seat better be very, very warm, very, very quickly next year if we don't see significant off-season improvement. So yeah, there's a lot of things to be disappointed at, frustrated at, infuriated at with this Saints offense. But I start with the coaches, and specifically the man at the top, Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I would too. I think the play calling has been boring. We already alluded to the lack of getting people involved. I'll go a little different route, just for the sake of conversation. Disappointing for me, whether it's his fault or not, is another year of Kendre Miller's season being cut short. I had a lot of high hopes for Kendre Miller this year. Obviously, he had a really good camp. That's everything we heard going out of camp. And we heard essentially the polar opposite of what we'd heard of Kendre Miller in Dennis Allen camps.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it was nice to have just such a drastic shift, and to see, hey, like, this guy could end up being a weapon. And there were games where Kendre got more carries than Alvin. There was a touchdown run where you're like, oh, wow, okay. That was that's what we're looking for. And then it just gets cut short. Unfortunate, Not necessarily his fault. Injuries happen, but you know as well as I do, Hall of Fame coach Bob Rose, is when after about the second injury, you start getting that label on you, being just an injury-prone guy. And now we're at the third, fourth year of Kendre Miller's season being cut short, and especially at the running back position, you go, how long can we go with this?
Yeah.
Right. For the sake of finances, if you're going to be playing the business part of it, I think it makes sense. He's a third-round pick. It's not going to be too expensive just to see out his rookie deal. But, you know, his future with the team is definitely up in the air. I think disappointing because I thought he had a real opportunity to make an impact. And we didn't get to see it again. But I think I'm with you on like just the number one thing has been you bring in an offensive play caller, a guy who played quarterback himself, a guy who was on a staff last year that took a team to the Super Bowl. And while that wasn't the most exciting offense of all time,
it was effective.
It was effective, and we have not seen effective yet this year. We've seen some games where the numbers have looked good statistically for like a single player, but then you look at the stats for the team and you're like, ugh. Even going back to last week with Tyler Shuck's first NFL win as a starter, his numbers were good, but the team only put up 17 points. I want to stick with quarterback. I don't think it would be fair to do a season to this point recap without talking about Spencer Rattler in a little bit more detail. Obviously, we only have so much time here. But I do want to talk about your thoughts on Spencer Rattler, both positive and negative. For me, the thing that I took positive, even though he did end up getting benched, was there was a stretch there where I felt like you could see growth from year one to year two. I think there were stretches there and moments there where you went, okay, this guy has shown me enough that he could be an NFL quarterback for an extended amount of time. Perhaps not a starting quarterback, but a guy who would be a solid piece in a quarterback room. You know, you look at the guys like Chase Daniel, former New Orleans Saint, spent a lot of years in the league as a backup. Me being in the Carolina area, as you think about Clemson legend Charlie Whitehurst, clipboard Jesus. Jesus made a lot of money, not doing a whole lot in terms of putting stats up. But you see enough out of Spencer Rattler to be like, you know what, you're going to be a serviceable guy that is going to compete in the quarterback room. Now, with that, the negatives are, while you saw some areas of growth, you saw some areas with no growth at all. And some of that was the accuracy intermediate to deep, the hesitancy to rip it. Some of that you can throw on Spencer. I think some of that you can throw on the coaching staff. We already talked about that a little bit, especially for a guy who has the type of arm talent that you see on college tape of his. But ultimately, I think it was the right move, and we've kind of teased that all year that we thought it was going to happen at some point. And I remember even going into, I believe it was the Giants game, his only win. And I even said, you wanted the move to happen going into the Giants game. And I said, well, it's going to be really hard if Spencer gets the start and wins, because at that point, what does he have to do to get benched? And we saw what he had to do to get benched. That was turn the ball over a lot in 2 games. But for your assessment of the Spencer Rattler experience in 25.
I completely agree with you that I'm actually impressed at the development that I saw out of Rattler from year 1 to year 2, particularly in his pocket presence. He showed some decent poise, decisiveness when it came to making the decision to tuck the ball and run and pick up yards with his legs. And I think athletically he has a distinct advantage over Tyler Shuck in that area. But outside of that, the problems, the issues that I've had with Spencer Rattler all the way back to his first year at Oklahoma was still very clear. He still doesn't look to me like a player, like a quarterback that can read a defense, well enough to be a long-term starter. You called it, you hit the nail on the head when you said, indecisiveness and inaccuracy on intermediate and deep routes. Not good when you have a track team at wide receiver. He just, I know people will point to his completion percentage. I counter with, it's an impressive completion percentage, but look at the games, look at the ball placement. Very rarely was Spencer Rattler putting the ball in position for his pass catchers to make plays, create yards after the catch. And I think that above all else, aside from the turnovers in that 2-week stretch, is why Kellen Moore finally had to make the decision to pull the trigger and bring in Tyler Shuck. Does Spencer Rattler belong in the NFL, though? Yeah, I think he proved that he does, but probably no more no more than a backup, and a spot starter who, with the right talent and scheme around him, can even win you a few games. And I know that sounds crazy for a quarterback that's 1-13, but the pro Rattler crowd will quickly point to, well, look at the lack of talent that he had around him. I mean, there is something to that, but good quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, will make the talent around them better. And Spencer Rattler just is never going to be that guy. Will he put together an extended NFL career? Probably on a few different, albeit on a few different teams. Yeah, I think he will, and I think he deserves that shot. But I think he's also we've seen what we've seen out of Spencer Rattler to know that he's not the guy. And I think that Spencer got more than a fair shot to prove if he could be that guy. And like I said, I saw some good things from him, especially early in the season, that frankly pleasantly surprised me. But at the end of the day, Spencer Rattler is who Spencer Rattler is. And that's why he's the second string on the Saints right now.
Let's talk about the first string guy in New Orleans. I know it's still a small sample size, but Tyler Shuck, we applauded and we talked about a little bit last week. This is a guy who looked good in the pocket. This is a guy who escapability, I think, was the word I used on Wednesday. It was the escapability without being a mobile quarterback, which is kind of weird. It sounds like an oxymoron almost. But he had a very high IQ and the ability to climb the pocket and maneuver the pocket to find different launch points. I wouldn't go as far as some of the people online that are saying, oh my gosh, the Saints have found their guy.
Yeah.
But it is nice to see some of these almost like a positive affirmation of, okay, this is why they drafted him where they did. And I can see the vision a little bit better than I did in the preseason or early in the season. I think there's a lot of room for growth. And he was, his best game came against a defense that was dead last in the league a year ago and the worst of all time in terms of surrendering yardage. But I have a little bit more confidence going into this weird stretch of games that you alluded to down the stretch where the opposing team's winning percentage is like 38% or something like that. I feel a little bit better about it after seeing Shuck perform as well as he did against the Carolina Panthers. Again, this is supposed to be a recap video, not a predicting the future type of podcast, but the little bit of sample size you've seen, what have you liked out of Tyler Shuck, and what are some things you're still concerned about with his game?
I'm anxious to see what Tyler Shuck's going to do down the stretch, especially against some really bad defenses. I liked Shuck a lot coming into the draft process. I think y'all know that by now. And he showed why I like him. And frankly, both of his games against the Rams, I know that was a debacle, but Shuck showed nice poise against heavy pressure. Showed the ability to slide away from pressure. Certainly showed both of those things against the Panthers. And what I think I've liked the most about Shuck so far is when he does move away from pressure, he maintains very good throwing mechanics. And it has shown the ability to hit his receivers in stride at all three levels. So your Olaves, your Cooks, your Jawans, your Camaras on the swing passes. You don't really see much slowing up or stopping by those guys. He's hitting them in stride. He's hitting them to a spot, where they can get the ball on the move and make some plays after the fact. I'd still like to see a better deep ball from him. He's going to be put in position where defenses are going to say, okay, we're going to show you blitz, but we're going to mix it up. We're going to make you read us. We're going to make you go through progressions to find the open guy. So Shuck really hasn't had to do that through 2 games yet, because he's just been heavily blitzed. So he's had to make that snap decisions. Well, that fits in line with the college systems that he ran at Texas Tech. I don't count Oregon because he got so little playing time there, but at Texas Tech and Louisville, they were all They were both up tempo offenses. 1-2 read, bam, the ball's gone. 1-2 read, bam, the ball's gone. And an up tempo style. We've seen him be effective with that. Rattler was effective with that too, by the way, when the Saints ran it, earlier in the year, when Moore ran it earlier in the year with him. But I'm anxious to see, how quickly the rookie can pick up the nuances of an NFL defense. It's something the Rattler obviously struggled at, and it's something that even if Shuck is good at it, we're going to see some ups and downs because he's an inexperienced rookie quarterback. It's how quickly he can develop, how quickly he can progress, and what his ceiling is. Those are the 3 things that I'm going to be watching from Shuck over these last 7 games.
What you said last is the most important thing as well. What is his ceiling? Because look, the fact of the matter is, I think Saints fans are anxious to find, as you say, Bob, you're either looking for your franchise quarterback or you have your franchise quarterback. Saints are still looking, and I think fans are getting a little anxious with the amount of starters that this team has had since the retirement of Drew Brees. Let's take just a little bit to talk about the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, as I die.
That's fine. It's that time of year. Everybody's feeling some type of way, coughing their guts out. Bob may or may not be jumping in and out of the conversation. But this is a defense that I think a lot of us had concerns about. One, because it was a youthful secondary. I think, 2, because, and you and I were some of the few people to highlight this over the summer, was they didn't really get better at defensive end or edge, particularly for a team that did not sack the quarterback a whole lot last year. We had concerns about, or at least I had concerns of how players were going to fit in the new system. I brought up Brzee a lot, and he's proven me wrong. He's fit pretty well. We had concerns at linebacker. We had concerns everywhere. Really, we didn't feel like this was a defense that got extraordinarily better from a year ago. Bob, I would say, in a weird way, it's been the Saints' most consistent of the offense or defense on the 2 or 3 different sides of the ball. If you throw special teams in there, I think it's safe to say out of the 3 phases of ball, defense has been the most consistent. Doesn't mean they've been great. Sometimes it doesn't mean they've been good, but they've been the most consistent.
I disagree.
Okay.
They have been the better unit, the best unit comparatively to the offensive special teams. But consistent is not a word I would use with this defense. They have been a wildly erratic. One week, I understand what you were saying, and I agree with you on that point. I just wouldn't use the word consistency because 1 week they're getting gashed against the run. The next week they're giving up key completions to a Mac Jones or a Sam Darnold. We could throw the Rams game out because the Rams just completely decimated them. They did what they wanted to as often as they wanted to. But the Rams are a good football team. So yeah, I mean we'll throw that one out. But at the same time, the Saints have shown potential. They completely shut down Carolina. They forced 4 or 5 turnovers against the Giants. They shut down. They contained Josh Allen in the Buffalo Bills passing game. So we've seen signs there. I think the secondary, a young secondary that we were worried about their ups and downs. The secondary has been the most consistently good unit on this entire football team. But what you said and what our concerns were about the Saints personnel and the ability to fit the scheme that we suspected Brandon Staley would run, I still have those concerns. I don't think the Saints have the full personnel from front to back to do what Staley wants to do defensively. Demario Davis, I think, has had a very good year. Chase Young, I think, has had an outstanding year, albeit in 5 games. And Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quincy Riley, Jonas Sanker, they're an exciting trio of young defensive backs. Alontae Taylor up and down. Cam Jordan's showing he still has some good football left in the tank. Nathan Shepard been on a tear lately. Agree with you about Brissy. I think he's had a very good year. Granderson started out the year on a tear and has been invisible for 5 weeks. So again, there's a lot of wild ups and downs there. You have the young pieces to compete in the secondary. We're starting to. It's still a big question at linebacker outside of Davis. Pete Werner's not the guy. We haven't seen enough of Danny Stutzman to know if he can be the guy, and we're starting to see more of Isaiah Stallberg. The Saints still don't have a run stuffer in the middle. I think that's a huge underrated need for this team going into this offseason. But again, I mean, if you're going to give a game ball defensively, you have to give it to Davis, but I give another one to Chase Young. I think Chase is playing the best football of his career, through the 5 games he's been in the lineup.
I was going to say, we don't need to go back to the little side bet we had when I was in Seattle, right? About how many games he was actually going to play. I think for me, I use the word consistent because you know what you're going to get in terms of they're going to get gashed one way or another, whether it be in the run or in the pass. You could say the offense has been consistently vanilla, I guess, if you wanted to go that route. But the defense, to your point, has been the better of the 3 phases, which is not what I was expecting this year. Special teams has been bad. I don't know if we're going to have too much time to talk about that tonight. But for me, I would say that it has been promising to see that Cameron Jordan still has something in the tank. I think the secondary, while young, I think you've seen moments from Quincy Riley, you've seen moments from Kool-Aid McKinstry and Jonas Sanker that get you excited. And I think Alontae Taylor, while the knock on him has been these massive up and downs, right? Like he will make a game-changing play and then give up a game-changing play. At least okay, this is where he fits. He's a great blitzer. He has good instincts. You know what you got there, which I think gives you some confidence to allow those younger guys to do some other things. So I do think that's a bright spot. So you and I have talked about this, and you've been more vocal about it. I don't think Justin Reed has had the year that we expected. I think he has not played up to what we expected him to, coming in from a championship system and being the veteran, maybe even the voice defensively in the secondary. But if I had to say like a game ball, the phrase that you used, I would say for now, since you took Chase Young and DeMario, I'd say like Alontae Taylor gets one for me so far this year. And like I said, while he does give up some big plays, he has made some big plays. And his veteran leadership and the ability to play multiple spots has given some security to a very young, inexperienced group. I'll ask you the same things I asked you about the offense. You kind of answered like who's kind of been the best. What's been the biggest frustration for you defensively, whether it be a player, whether it be Brandon Staley? What is the biggest thing that makes you just go when you're watching the games on Sunday?
Brandon Staley's helplessness to make any in-game adjustments whatsoever to what the opposition is doing to his defense. It's like the guy first stepped on planet Earth some weeks. He has been that bad. Now, I'm not blaming it all on Brandon Staley, just like I didn't blame it all on Kellen Moore. The players have to execute. They're the ones that make the tackles. They're the ones that have to break up the passes, avoid penalties. And the other frustration is, Devon Godshaw, man. I know he didn't come in with a first-round pedigree or anything like that. But the Saints eyeballed him, traded for him, specifically because they felt he could be their wide body in the center to at least clog running lanes. He has been anything but. And they need that big body because Brian Bresee, I love Bresee as a player, but he's a slasher. He's not the kind of guy that you could plug in the center, and he's just going to draw 2-3 blockers and still get pushed back into the backfield. Same with Nathan Shepard to a lesser degree. So I think the Saints took a swing and a miss. Now, granted, it was a late round draft choice that they dealt to get Godshaw. So I'm not going to pull my hair out much over that. But again, this is the kind of personnel decision that makes you question this front office. Okay, what made you think Godshaw was the guy to man your middle? And B, why didn't you do? We've seen this run defense be horrific the previous 2 years. Because they were getting pushed around, bullied in the center. You weren't able to keep blockers off of Demario Davis and Pete Werner, and you still can't. So. It's the lack of a consistent pass rush continues to frustrate me. But it's the run defense getting bullied. Too many weeks. Now I say that you had that wonderful goal line, 5-play goal line stand against Tampa Bay, and the very next drive they almost did the very same thing. So you see some potential there. And you could say this about the entire defense from front to back. You see some potential there, but you just don't have enough talent at any of the 3 levels right now. Enough established talent. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of defensive moves this team makes this offseason.
Yeah, and to your point about Godshaw, I think anytime you make the switch to the 3-4, the most important piece is the 3 technique defensive tackle or nose tackle. A little frustrating that wasn't made a priority in the draft when you knew you were making that switch, and maybe there wasn't a guy on the board that you were like you felt super comfortable with, but Godshaw felt more like hey, let's just get a guy, like a body that we know can kind of fill the position. but he hasn't been dominant. He's had moments. You kind of alluded to some of it, right? There's been moments in the run game for the team as a whole, but other times there's just holes. So there's that. Let's talk special teams before we get out of here.
Yeah, they deserve no more than 30 seconds.
Okay, well, here's my two things, and we'll talk about our friends that get check out, and then we'll get out of here. But frustrating thing for me, Blake Grupe all of a sudden becoming inconsistent. He has been better as of late, so I'll give him some props there. You know, he didn't let it become a case of the yips, but it was frustrating there for a little bit to go, what the heck happened? Especially when you see a guy like Will Lutz who cut
exactly
hitting a field goal tonight, where it's like, oh man, like cut the wrong guy. But for Blake, it is nice to see him kind of swinging around. More frustrating is every year we have a different punter, and
it seems to be
getting
worse.
It's like no offense to Kai Kroger, but it's like, how'd you win the job?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what separated you so much that every year it just seems like, okay. Because, like, from Morstead to Gillikin got talked up so much as just having this massive leg. And Morstead talked him up, and now he's in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, it's just like every year, okay, so this guy came in and he outperformed the other guys. Okay, well, then that's good because Gillikin kind of set the bar. He had a tough stretch, but he kind of set the bar for, okay, like, you know, this guy's supposed to have a massive leg on him. And it's just like, okay. You're just not seeing those same, like, booming field position changing type of punts. That's frustrating. We'll see how frustrating it is, but you do lose Rashid Shaheed in that trade.
Yeah.
And you lose the electric return ability. So who's going to step in and be that guy? All right, because you go from Deontay Hardy, who was a Pro Bowler or All-Pro selection as a return man, to Shaheed, who is an All-Pro selection return man, to who's the next guy, right? And even going before Hardy, you did have years where there was an expectation, right? You had Darren Sproles at some point. Marcus Murphy might have not been the greatest example, but even Marcus Murphy had moments. He had a return for a touchdown. So there has been some expectation in the return game, and now it's like, okay, well, where's that going to come from? So that's my quick 2 cents on the special teams. If you have anything to add to that,
I'm hoping Groupie turns it around. Like you said, he's trending in the right direction. But if I'm Kellen Moore, I don't trust him. I don't trust Blake Groupie with the game on the line. He's got to show something. Agree with everything that you said about concerns with the return, the returners, and Kai Kroger, and I need to see more physicality from the coverage units too. Isaiah Stalbert has laid down some thunderous hits, but you're just who'd have thunk that the team would have met? That JT Gray met that. We knew he was a good special teams player, but who knew that he meant that much to the entire coverage unit? So I think that we need a couple of young players to really step up, for those coverage units down the stretch. And it's the kind of thing, I mean, and we saw it from the Saints from 2017 through really last year. A couple thunderous hits, couple great kick coverages can turn the momentum of a game. And we have not seen that for the Saints yet this year. Hopefully that turns it around. I don't think going back to coaching, I don't think Brandon Staley's going anywhere. He and Kellen Moore are tight. Moore and Staley should get a year plus to make things right. I do not feel the same security should be afforded to the special teams coaches, because these guys were kind of holdovers. Darren Rizzi was in charge of the unit, but these are his assistants that were basically kept around. So, if we don't see improvement from Groupie, from Kroger, from the coverage units, I think that you could see a coaching change here this offseason.
Yeah, That's a fair point. To your point with kick coverage, you brought up JT Gray, all pro. Chris Banjo, really good for New Orleans. Arthur Malott, very good in New Orleans, and then up in Pittsburgh as well for a stretch. Like, as silly as it sounds to some people, I was told, because it was the only thing I was good at when I was playing football, was special teams. If you're a great special teamer, you could find yourself in the NFL. Now, that idea has died a little bit with some of the changes to kickoffs and whatnot, but it's still extremely important, right? It's not special teams, it's special forces. I will die on that hill because they force the game to go one way or the other. But I'm going to swing it to you to talk to the people about our friends at Get Checked or Check Out and the Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise that you are going to be on this year. So you can add yourself as one of the celebrities that people can come and hang out with. I'm going to swing it to you to talk to them about that and all the other wonderful things that this organization does.
Well, listen, I don't know if I would add myself to this celebrity list, but I'll be happy to sign autographs for any of y'all that want it. On the 2026 cruise, but get ready for the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation's annual Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. Set sail Thursday, March 26th through Monday, March 30th from Jacksonville, Florida, for an unforgettable weekend in the tropical Bahamas. Join Black and Gold legends Tyrone Hughes, Delvin Breaux, Michael Lewis, and Courtney Roby for a tremendous fun-filled getaway with a purpose. We'll all visit the brand new Celebration Key Island in the Bahamas, along with Nassau, where you'll get to play beach Olympics with your favorite team captain, at the aforementioned Saints legends above. You'll compete in believe me, it's a highly intense putt-putt golf tournament. I mean, trash talking, cheating. I'm not going to say by who, but trash talking by everybody. You get to enjoy meals, game nights, trivia, Q&A sessions with these players, and not just at certain time sessions. These guys and their families, they're hanging out with us on our own section of the boat the entire trip. And therefore, we get to party the days and nights away, and we get to do it all for a cause. Get Checked or Check Out their website at the bottom of the screen, tcynow.org. They were put in place to help you through medical crisis, whether it's you, a family member, or a loved one. You get a diagnosis that just has you spinning in all kinds of different directions. You don't know where to turn. Get Checked or Check Out will help set the path for you. They'll send you in the right direction for treatment options, research options, therapy, whether it's physical or emotional, whether it's individual or group. So check out that website at the bottom. It talks a lot more about their site, a lot more that I could possibly say. But they're a charitable organization that's there for us, but we need to help them be there for us. So you can also make donations at the bottom of that screen, tcynow.org, or Get Checked or Check Out's biggest fundraiser of the year are these cruises. They've been happening for 12 consecutive years. I went for the first time last year. Believe you me, I had a blast. And this gives you the chance to meet some of these Saints legends, to get away for just an unbelievable trip of fun. Whether it's alcohol filled or not is your choice. But if you stay stone cold sober, you'll still have a blast. All these tickets help raise the needed funds. Get Checked or Check Out needs to help us. Reserve your spot now. Cabins are going fast, but there are still some available. You can call Summer through 7 Seas Travel at 985-788-6584, or you can contact Shireen, the co-founder of Get Checked or Check Out, for any more details. Shireen's number is 504-305-7563. When you contact Summer or Shireen, let them know you were sent by Bob, Brendan and the Bayou Blitz, they will know how to take care of you. And yeah, please, I want to see more. It was so great to meet so many of you, but I want to meet more of you uh, at the 2026 cruise. Get checked or check out. Also wants to remind us that November is Diabetes Awareness Month. Now, diabetes affects about 38 million Americans, both adults and children. This is a disease that can affect your eyesight, your kidneys, your nerves, your heart, and is linked to several different types of cancers. Excuse me. Now, adult diabetes are more likely to develop in ages 35 or older, but family history, a person that's not physically active, obesity, and just someone that doesn't maintain a healthy diet, all these increase your chances to contract it. And just remember to manage your diabetes ABCs. A, make sure you keep up on your A1C test, your blood glucose tracking. You could do so with your medical health professional. So please, please, please make those appointments, keep those appointments, not just for this, but for anything, mental, emotional, or physical. B, your blood pressure. You can all kinds of things that you can do from home to maintain your blood pressure. And C, maintain your cholesterol. These are all controllables to help reduce your chances to contract a disease that affects 38 million people worldwide.
Well said. You know, Bob, I'm looking forward to hearing about the very competitive tournaments that you guys are going to have this year. I've told you multiple times. I'll tell you again. I will donate weighted golf balls. All right. I'm not sure if you guys are running it back with Courtney Roby. So Courtney, if you're watching, I got the weighted golf balls. Just keep it on the DL, even though I'm pretty sure everybody else is going to hear this on the podcast at some point. We're going to help you guys out. That'll be my contributions. I'm really hoping. I'm not even hoping. I'm just going to make it happen for not the 26 cruise, but the 27. Bob and I both being there. Bob and I doing a live show there. I'm just hanging out with all you guys. But I know Bob is really looking forward to bringing his family on. As you've said, your family loved it so much. You guys weren't even off the boat before you said we're going to make this a yearly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And your family loved it so much that they're just excited to meet other Saints fans. Because at the end of the day, I mean, look, you and I have been doing this a decade, right?
Almost, yeah.
Almost a decade. There's a lot of you guys that we haven't met. There's a handful we have met at some of the games or just in passing. But there's a lot of you we haven't met. We're really looking forward to getting a chance to know you guys a little bit better and make it a big family reunion once a year on a boat somewhere in the ocean, just having a great time. But definitely check out the website, tcynow.org. Make sure you read up on all the great things that they're doing, how you can contribute, how you can donate. As Bob said, they're here for us. The least we could do is be there for them. Well, for Bob Rose, I'm Brendan Boylan. That was our season to this point recap with the New Orleans Saints. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the bye, not having too much stress this week and all that. We will be back on Wednesday to talk some hate week as the Atlanta Falcons are coming to town again. Knock on wood, everything goes well with my flight, and I'm back in time to do that. If not, we will let you guys know what's going on. I will throw this out there because it came across my timeline. So quick teaser going into Wednesday. The Michael Penix injury suffered today is the same knee that kept him out earlier in the year. The reports is that there is a legitimate concern that he will miss time. Drake London also was injured in the game. That'll be something we're keeping an eye on. This could be a matchup where we're seeing Kirk Cousins start at quarterback for the Falcons. We'll see, but Bob and I will have all of that and more on Wednesday night. Look forward to talking to you guys then. And until then, hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. Thanks for tuning in with the Bayou Blitz. See you then.